Dear students, history buffs, and the curious of all ages, welcome to this lesson on Europe in a time of extraordinary transformation. Today we will explore two crucial phenomena that shaped our continent, the Restoration and the Italian Risorgimento. These events are not just chapters in a history book, but the foundations of the world we live in. We will guide you through an era of great change, from the ambitions of rulers to the aspirations of the people. We will see how they tried to quash the French Revolution and how new forces and ideals emerged instead. Prepare yourself for a journey that will reveal the roots of modern Italy and contemporary Europe. The period between 1815 and 1870 was a time of profound change in Europe, a true historical crossroads. The great Napoleonic Wars had left a continent devastated, but also radically transformed in its political and social structures. After 20 years of conflict and revolution, it was necessary to rebuild order. In this tumultuous context, two historical processes stand out for their importance, the Restoration and the Risorgimento. The Restoration represented the victorious power's attempt to return to the past, while the Risorgimento was the inexorable push towards a future of unity and independence for the Italian peninsula. These two movements, although opposite in their aims, are intrinsically linked. After Napoleon's final defeat, the European powers met in Vienna between 1814 and 1815. Their primary purpose was clear: to restore the political and social order that preceded the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era. The aim was to erase the revolutionary legacy and re-establish the legitimacy of traditional rulers. The Restoration was based on well-defined principles which guided the decisions of diplomats in Vienna. The first was the principle of legitimacy, which provided for the return to the thrones of the sovereigns deposed by Napoleon. This meant ignoring the national aspirations and reforms introduced by the French. The second principle was that of equilibrium, aimed at creating a system of balanced states to prevent future hegemonies. No power should be so strong as to threaten European peace, leading to a meticulous redrawing of borders. The goal was to ensure lasting stability through a reciprocal balance of power. Finally, the principle of intervention legitimized joint military action by the powers in the event of a threat to the restored order. The Holy Alliance, a pact between Austria, Prussia, and Russia, was its most emblematic expression. These nations pledged to defend monarchical absolutism against any revolutionary attempt. The consequences of the Congress of Vienna were profound and radically changed the map of Europe. First, it witnessed the restoration of absolute monarchies with the return of ancient dynasts to their thrones. The constitutions and civil liberties won through the revolution were almost everywhere repealed. A widespread redrawing of European borders took place, often without regard for national identities. New buffer states were created to contain France, such as the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Italy, in particular, was fragmented into numerous small states, almost all under Austrian influence. This led to a division of Europe among the great powers, which divided influence on the continent. The goal was to maintain peace through a system of alliances and a balance of power. The main players in this new order were Austria, Prussia, Russia, Great Britain, and France. Austria, under Metternich, was the pillar of the Restoration in Central Europe and Italy. Prussia extended its territories westward, laying the foundation for future German unification. Russia consolidated its position in Eastern Europe, expanding its influence. Great Britain, although not a member of the Holy Alliance, supported the European balance of power to protect its commercial and colonial interests. France, despite being the defeated power, managed to maintain a significant position. Thanks to Talleyrand's diplomatic skill, it returned to being considered a great power. Despite its efforts, the restoration project was doomed to failure. It was impossible to completely erase the profound social, political, and cultural changes brought about by the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era. New ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity had taken deep root. The spread of the ideals of freedom and independence, fueled by the Napoleonic Wars, could not be contained. People had tasted the possibility of self-determination and living under more representative governments. The Restoration, with its return to absolutism, appeared to be a step backward. The emergence of nationalist and self-determination demands emerged forcefully. Many communities, divided by artificial borders or subjected to foreign powers, began to dream of their own unity and independence. Italy and Germany are the most striking examples. The tension between the restored order and the people's new aspirations gave rise to a series of revolutionary movements across Europe. These movements, though different in their characteristics, were an unmistakable sign that the attempt to return to the past was futile. They were years of insurrections, revolts, and civil wars. The first signs of discontent emerged as early as the 1820s with the so-called uprisings of 1820 and 1821. These struggles aimed to secure constitutions and independence, often organized by secret societies such as the Carbonari. Spain, Portugal, southern Italy, and Piedmont were the sites of these uprisings. In particular, Greece gained independence from the Ottoman Empire. an event of great resonance in Europe. The European powers, despite differing interests, ultimately supported the Greek cause. This was a first blow to the Holy Alliance's principle of intervention, which failed to act to quell the revolt. In the 1830s, a new wave of revolution shook the continent, with the July Revolution of 1830 in France as its epicenter. King Charles VI, who had attempted to restore absolutism, was deposed after the Three Glorious Days. This event demonstrated the fragility of the restored order, even at its heart. Louis-Philippe d'Orléans ascended the throne, proclaiming himself King of the French by the will of the nation. His bourgeois constitutional monarchy became a model for liberals throughout Europe. Belgium, inspired by the events in France, gained independence from the Netherlands. The culmination of this revolutionary wave came with the uprisings of 1848, a year remembered as the springtime of the peoples. Widespread revolutions broke out in almost all European states, from France to Austria, from Prussia to Italy. It was a simultaneous explosion of demands for freedom and rights. In Paris, a new revolution led to the fall of Louis Philippe's monarchy and the proclamation of the Second Republic. In Vienna, the revolt forced Metternich to resign and led to the introduction of a constitution. In Berlin and many German cities, there were calls for greater national unity and liberal reforms. In Italy, insurrections broke out in several cities, such as Milan with the 5 Days of War and Venice, which proclaimed its republic. Many Italian rulers were forced to grant constitutions, the so-called carte austriate. It was a moment of great hope for the Risorgimento movement. The outcome of these uprisings was, in the short term, a substantial failure for most of the insurrections. The reorganized absolute monarchies managed to quell the revolts and re-establish their control. The constitutions granted were often withdrawn or emptied of meaning. However, the significance of these movements went far beyond their immediate results. They unequivocally demonstrated the unstoppable force of the desire for change that pervaded European society. People were no longer willing to passively accept an order imposed from above. Furthermore, the revolutionary movements paved the way for future developments by exposing the weaknesses of absolute monarchies. They consolidated the idea that the nation was a fundamental political entity, pushing for the unification of states like Italy and Germany. Future generations would pick up the baton. Among all the European revolutionary movements, the Italian Risorgimento stands out for its complexity and profound meaning. It was the long and troubled process that led to the unification of the peninsula, which for centuries had been fragmented and dominated by foreign powers. It was not only a political struggle but also a cultural and social one. This process was characterized by a multiplicity of ideas and strategies which often clashed. Republicans and monarchists, federalists and Unitarians all contributed to weaving the complex fabric of the Risorgimento. The common goal, however, was the independence and unity of Italy. Numerous protagonists have left their mark on the history of the Risorgimento, each with a distinct vision and role. These figures, with their actions and ideals, guided Italy toward its national rebirth. Three figures in particular were emblematic of this period. Giuseppe Mazzini was the Republican soul of the Risorgimento, a visionary who dreamed of a united, free, and Republican Italy. He believed that unity had to be achieved through popular initiative and insurrection. His faith in Italy's mission was unshakable. Mazzini founded the Young Italy movement, a clandestine political organization aimed at engaging the masses in the fight for independence. He advocated widespread political education and widespread conspiracy. His ideals of homeland, freedom, and humanity inspired an entire generation of patriots. Many patriots, while not fully sharing his Republican vision, were inspired by his determination and ardor. Mazzini is considered one of the fathers of Italian national thought. His intellectual legacy is still a subject of study and reflection today. Camillo Benso di Cavour was the skilled Piedmontese statesman who led the Kingdom of Sardinia with his pragmatic and diplomatic policies. He understood that unification could not be achieved through insurrections alone, but required concerted political and diplomatic action. Cavour was a moderate liberal. His strategy was to modernize Piedmont and integrate it into the European context of the great powers. Through economic and political reforms, he transformed the Kingdom of Sardinia into a model. Cavour sought international alliances to confront the powerful Austrian Empire. His boldest move was the alliance with Napoleon III's France, concluded with the Plombières Accords. The goal was to defeat Austria and annex Lombardy to Piedmont, a crucial step toward Italian unity. Cavour demonstrated extraordinary skill in managing the political and diplomatic scene. Giuseppe Garibaldi, the hero of two worlds, led the legendary military exploits of the Risorgimento. His charismatic figure and courage made him a living symbol of the fight for freedom. He was a man of action, capable of inflaming the hearts of the masses. His most famous exploit was the Expedition of the Thousand, which led to the conquest of Sicily and southern Italy in 1860. Starting from Quarto with just over 1,000 volunteers, Garibaldi overthrew the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. This epic was crucial in the unification of southern Italy with the rest of the peninsula. Garibaldi's contribution was crucial, adding a vast territory to the nascent Italian state. Although a Republican, he decided to hand over the conquered territories to Victor Emmanuel II. It was an act of great political generosity, placing national unity before his own convictions. The unification process was not painless and required several wars against Austria. Three wars of independence saw the Kingdom of Sardinia and then the Kingdom of Italy confront the Habsburg Empire. Each conflict was a step forward toward achieving unity. The First War of Independence, 1848-1849, saw the Kingdom of Sardinia under Charles Albert face Austria. Initially supported by other Italian states, the conflict ended in defeat for the Piedmontese. It was a moment of disillusionment, but it did not dampen patriotic fervor. The Second War of Independence was fought thanks to the alliance with Napoleon III's France. The victories of Solferino and San Martino were decisive, although France withdrew prematurely. The result was the annexation of Lombardy to the Kingdom of Sardinia, a fundamental step. Finally, the Third War of Independence saw Italy allied with Prussia against Austria. Despite the Italian military defeats at Custoza and Lissa, the Prussian victory at Sadowa was crucial. Italy obtained the annexation of Veneto, completing another significant part of its territory. The culmination of this process was the proclamation of the Kingdom of Italy, which took place on March 17, 1861. Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed the first king of Italy, and Turin became the new state's first capital. A new nation was born, the fruit of decades of struggle and sacrifice. Despite the proclamation, the legacy of the Risorgimento was initially incomplete. Rome and the Veneto, territories essential to full national unity, were still missing. Rome, the seat of papal power, was annexed only in 1870 after the breach of Porta Pia. The Risorgimento represented the triumph of the ideals of freedom, independence, and national unity that had animated Europe since the 18th century revolutions. It demonstrated how the will of a people could overcome the resistance of conservative powers. It was a model for other nations seeking autonomy. Italian unification, along with German unification, led to a radical transformation of the political map of Europe. The great multinational empires began their decline while nation states emerged. Europe had irrevocably changed, and with it, the course of world history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Restoration and the Risorgimento. I hope this lesson has provided you with the tools to better understand such a pivotal period in our history. Continue to explore, study, and ask questions, because history is the key to understanding the present.